Hey, please join me into the ASP.NET MVC as we get to understand how it handles incoming HTTP requests and creates the outgoing HTTP responses. The ASP.NET MVC framework allows a very specific pattern for this request and in response cycle, allowing you multiple different places along that path to intervene with your own code. These routes are used to figure out which controller class to route the request to. Once the correct controller is identified, a new instance of that controller class is instantiated and initialized. Once that controller instance has been created, the appropriate action method in that class can be executed. Now your program code is actually being run, specifically your code in the controller class in question. The results of the action method is an object that inherits from the action result based class. This object is what is executed on the next step. Sometimes this action result represents a simple HTTP response with just a response and no body. Other times it can be a JSON formatted string. But in MVC applications, the most common response is a view built with a razor syntax and bound to a model class. If that result is a razor view, the view engine is used during the result execution to turn the razor into HTML that can be displayed by the browser. Either way though, the result ends with some valid HTTP request being sent over the wire to the user. Usually that means the razor view inside of a 200 OK response with the HTML being sent inside the body of that response. The HTTP response is sent back to the user's browser where it downloads and displays this page of the application in its new state, and the user is now free to interact with the application again to start a new request and response cycle. I mentioned there are several places during this life cycle when our code can run. The most common place for that is during the action execution when the controller's action method code actually executes. And when your razor code is executed and the razor view returned by the action method, you can intercept the result or response in other places though, with something called filters. You can intercept the request first for the purpose of authorizing previous authenticated users. Then for authenticating users that haven't been authenticated, then a general purpose filter you can apply to an action or many actions, and another one that applies right after the action has executed. Next, you can filter the results before they are turned into an HTTP response. And finally, you can globally handle exceptions for the entire application.